everybody. Welcome to Attitudes with Andy. Thank you so much for being here each and every week. This is the place where we get to learn and grow on how to be our best selves from the amazing guests that we have on. Today, we have somebody who really fits the value of the podcast and the purpose of kind of why I started this podcast, which is to share tips and tricks to better your mental health and happiness. And today, we have the expert in the field. Because he has a beautiful company called the Good Human Factory that does workshops with schools and all other different organizations to teach people how to look after their mind better so we can all live a happier life. Not only that, but he also has a podcast where he gets to speak to amazing athletes and inspirational people about their journeys. So welcome, Cooper Chapman, to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's nice to be in the little studio having a chat, getting to share my story a bit. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. I've been wanting to get you on for way too long.
Here we are.
And here we are. We made it happen. Okay, so there's many different avenues that I have in my mind that we want to talk about. But first of all, I would love to know, what is your description of the Good Human Factory?
My description of the Good Human Factory, I guess the line that I share with people, what we do is just connect curious minds with simple mental health strategies. You mentioned that I'm an expert. I'm definitely not an expert in mental health. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a doctor. I don't have any crazy formal training, but I do have a lot of lived experience. I've been through quite an extraordinary life and learned some amazing skills along the way. And now I just feel like it's my duty to share that and connect different people, whether it be through my podcast, through my workshops, through my merch, just trying to open up conversations around mental health and really encourage the people who are willing to listen to the stuff I talk about to recognize that 20% of us have mental illness, but 80% of us don't. But the thing is, with mental health, 100% of us have mental health, whereas generally when you talk about mental health, people check out. When you say, oh, mental health, they go, oh, I don't really have bad mental health, I don't need to listen to this. But it's about trying to open that conversation and people to really recognize, like, hey, even if you've got decent mental health and not a mental illness, you can still be doing some stuff to take care of it.
Okay, I can't wait to get into what we can do to take care of it. But I just want to ask you, before you said you feel it's your duty, why do you feel it's your duty to share this important message?
Why do I feel it's my duty? I feel like being a professional athlete, a lot of my life as a surfer until I was about 28, 29, I retired only recently. It felt like I was climbing this. I read a lot of books and a lot of self-development books, and I read this one book called The Mountain Is You, and had read many different books around this idea of we chase and pursue this passion of ours as an athlete for so long, and then even if you get to the top, a lot feel like they're still a little bit unfulfilled. And I kind of felt that way while I was being an athlete. And then I learned this idea of service and doing for others is a really powerful and a really solid way to feel good about ourselves. A really good way to live is through service. And I feel like I was quite lucky to learn that throughout my 20s. And then as my surf career was maybe starting to hit its sort of decline, I realized, yeah, maybe I can share my story. And there was a bit of an event that happened that really led me towards doing the work I do now. But I just, felt like I'd learned so much that I really wanted to give back. So, my younger sister lost 2 friends to suicide in a fortnight of high school in her last year. And that was when I was just like, you know what, maybe some of the things that I've learned along my journey, some of the incredible coaches that have taught me lessons, I can share those stories on with other people. And that's what I've really been doing for the last 3 years. Okay,
so that's how the Good Human Factory was born?
Yeah, I guess the story goes a bit like this. I've got 3 sisters. My youngest sister was in her last year of high school back in, I think 2019 or 2018 maybe. I get the timeline a little bit wrong sometimes. And she came home from school one day and said that one of the boys in her year had taken his own life. And at the time, I'm traveling the world, getting paid to surf, living this extraordinary life. But then there's kids in my local area that are taking their own life and don't have the skills and the understanding of their own mental health to, not do the unthinkable. And that first one happened and I felt pretty rattled by it, to be honest. And then, like most of us do, I kind of looked up some of the stats and maybe chucked up an Instagram story about how important mental health is, and life went on. But then 2 weeks later, Sophia, my younger sister, came home again and said another boy in a year had taken his life. And that was when I was just like, you know what, I just can't sit around and do nothing about this. If I can maybe go to my local old school and share my story with a few of the kids and one of them learns something, then amazing. I've like done what I'm setting out to do now. And that was, 3.5, 4 years ago now. And since then I've spoken to, I think, close to like 40,000 students now, thousands of corporates, traveled all around the country getting to share my story and a lot of other people's through the podcast story to, just like I said at the start, try and connect curious minds with simple mental health strategies. I feel like mental health is so often pigeonholed and like, oh, it's not something for me, but it's like, how are we going to start to really change that conversation and make everybody recognize that we should do some stuff to take care of it? So I just feel like that was a catalyst for me turning my direction from being an athlete into something else. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm super proud of the work I've done, but I'm also very excited for the work that's to come.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that, as I said, I've been following you pretty much since like the beginning, and it's so cool seeing your growth, but it's also so evident how passionate you are about this, because I'm sure that this has been no easy task and that you've had a lot of hurdles, and I think your why is so big that you've obviously been able to like push past all the difficult times and stuff. So that's great.
Yeah, it's been cool. To be honest, I've never really looked back. I had a mate over for dinner last night who was living with me back in 2020 when COVID hit, which is sort of when I say the Good Human Factory really started, when COVID hits, when I sort of opened bank accounts and really started to actually...
Oh, that's when you know it's official.
I just got the business name and actually registered it. And I was with a friend last night and he was like, man, it's crazy how far you've come from like packing merch in little boxes in our house in Kingscliff to like the idea of the merch coming from like Byron, and just all these different stages. But there just hasn't been a single moment that I've looked back. There hasn't been any financial gain until really this right now. It's starting to make me a living and be able to support myself. But it's been years of just, grinding away, trying to refine the workshop, trying to get more people to, want me to come and speak about my story. Growing the podcast, is everything's been really naturally, slowly grown, but right now it feels like I'm in a place where, it's expanding really rapidly, which is exciting.
Definitely. Yeah, you've put in those hard yards and now you're seeing it pay off, which is such an important message for people, because I think these days we really want to see results like instantly, and just you're like, no, it took ages and now I'm finally seeing it pay off.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's crazy. Like my podcast, for instance, like I'm about to drop, I think, episode 120 in the next week or two, which is like 120 1-hour conversations. And I haven't missed a week for, I think, like 90 weeks in a row now, almost 2 years. I haven't missed a single week of putting out an episode or 2 episodes a week for close to 2 years now. So it's like that consistency is the thing that a lot of people don't see. A lot of people see like, oh, wow, I'm going to check out this episode 120, but it's like, no, that's 100 episodes of editing without getting paid a dime for it to actually grow it to where it is. So consistency is something that you can't really put a price on. It just like you have to do it each day, each week. And like the 1% Club's another good example. Like haven't missed a single day of sending people a meditation and gratitudes for over 2 years now. But the consistency, I think, is where people are starting to really appreciate the work that I do and realize that it is, coming from a genuine place to try and really just help them with their mental health journey.
Yes, huge. Okay, so let's talk mental health. First of all, how would you describe mental health?
I think mental health is just, it's a very hard question. I'll define what I think good mental health is. I think good mental health is somebody who has the ability to bounce back after hard times. I think all of us are going to go through challenging times throughout life. All of us are going to run into difficult circumstances, things that are out of our control. But I think it's how we react to situations that is really what our mental health is. It's the way that we can view the world, the values we live by, the understanding we have of ourselves, the different skills that we have in place. So when we go through these challenging times, we have the different things that can help us bounce back. So my definition of good mental health is just our ability to bounce back from difficult times. So and then I guess my definition of mental health is just the relationship that we have with ourselves.
Oh, we're taking down some shelves. Okay, I really love that. So are there often you speak to people and they don't realize, sorry, I'm going to reword that. Do you ever speak to people and they don't realize that maybe their mental health like could be better? Is that quite normal, or do people usually know that maybe their mental health actually isn't that great?
I mean, I think some people, quite a lot of people know, but I feel like a lot of people don't reflect and actually ask themselves questions and answer them honestly. we all know kind of the things that we should be doing for us. It's good for us. We all know we should be getting 8 hours a night sleep. We all know we should be drinking enough water each day. We all know we should be exercising. We all know we should be eating nutritious foods. But the relationship we have with ourselves is the truth that we can answer to those questions when we go, oh, have I really done all of those things today that we know we should be doing? Maybe I haven't been. That's when we start to really have that bad relationship with ourselves. So I think just understanding different positive things we can do and then actually doing them. And I love this quote of knowledge is knowing, wisdom is doing. So many of us are knowledgeable. We all know the great things and the positive and healthy things we should do, but it's like, how wise are you? How much are you actually living to those different values, those different techniques that you know about, but not actually doing? So it just comes back to those questions we asked ourselves and how honestly we can answer them.
Okay. So if somebody's listening to this and they're like, okay, I'm feeling pretty down, pretty not good. Where would they probably start? I know this is not advice, by the way. This is not professional advice. But like where would you start for like little habits maybe or mindsets to like get back on track to good mental health?
I think it's just small things. Right now at home I have a board that me and my partner drew that's called Full Potential. And every day there's like 10 different things that we're like, if we're living to our full potential, we're doing each of these things each day. So on that list right now, we have breath work. So we try and do breath work every morning we wake up. So at the end of the night, we go and tick or cross whether we did these things. And then at the end of the week, we have a full board that shows kind of ticks and crosses. And it's like, if it's more green ticks and red crosses, then we're living towards our full potential. So it's breath work every day, meditation every day. We have like our supplements. So we have like our green juice and whatnot each morning, 30 minutes of exercise each day, reading to a little bit each day, enough water each day. That's just based on our sort of yes or no, whether we think we had enough water for the day. Communication with each other as a couple is another one. We're like not just trying to work on our work. It's like, all right, we actually need to work on our relationship as well. So communication, we have stretching for every night written down. What else do we have on the list? We have work as one. So it's like we have this like blueprint. So we have like 10 different things. And then each day we go and tick and cross. And we're like, all right, we need to try and do 8 or 9 out of the 10 each day. And then by the end of the week, if we're doing that, then they're just a blueprint of the things that we can be doing and direct evidence how we're feeling after knowing, okay, we've done a lot of the stuff that we need to do. Another one for me is like I tape my mouth at night because breathing through our nose is better than our mouth. So like just all these little reminders that we need the accountability of, we have written down on a board. So that's a good little thing. If you're someone who goes, oh, I feel like I don't have the discipline, get a little piece of paper or a little whiteboard is what we use. Fill out a couple little things that you might have heard about. Oh, maybe I should do gratitude each day. Or maybe I should try and get into this breath work or meditation thing. To start, you just have to start. So many people I like to as well say, like, if you're not changing, you're choosing. A lot of people are unhappy in their situation, but they're not willing to change. So it's like, you're still choosing that situation that you're currently in. So just the small steps. It might be like, all right, I've got 3 little things that I need to do each day for the next week that I know are good for me. Things that are like gratitude, mindfulness, meditation, kindness, like all these different little things that, hey, we know make us feel good, but it's actually about going and doing them.
Yes, and I think having it on a board makes you kind of confront, like, sometimes you think you're like regularly doing something, but then if you actually track it, you're like, ooh, am I as consistent as I thought I was? So I really like that. And like 10 sounds like a lot, but the things you listed, like a breath work, a meditation, and things like, taking your vitamins, it's like all of those don't take much time.
They're not much time at all, but it's, what do you want to live to your full potential? And it's like some days we'll miss our stretching at night and we're like, you got to give yourself the cross. It's just about personal accountability. So many of us are just trying to blame our circumstance. Oh, I can't, I don't have time. Oh, I don't have this. So, well, look at your phone screen time. And if it's like less than an hour on social media each day or less than 40 minutes on social media each day, okay, maybe you don't have time. But I can almost guarantee everyone listening will probably look at their phone and between all their social media apps have spent more than an hour by the end of the day on it. So I was like, no, you do have time for 10 minutes of meditation. You do have time for 10 minutes of breath work. It's just you're choosing to prioritize your time on other things, which is okay. But a lot of people complain about not being where they want to be but aren't willing to do the work to get there.
Okay, so what about if people are like, if I just don't feel like meditating or I don't feel like doing these things?
if you're not changing, you're choosing. It's a hard one, and if there obviously is people who do have mental illness who have really challenging things going on up in their mind, which I encourage people definitely to go and see a psychologist, go and see your GP if you are really struggling and you're like, no, I really want to be doing this meditation, I really want to be doing all these things, and you're really hitting a roadblock and you just can't get yourself to doing it, then I'd go and speak to a professional about it. But I think it's super important that we all build that personal accountability, that personal responsibility, because the only person who can change your life is you. Even if you go and see a psychologist and they go, okay, we need you to take this pill each morning for as an SSRI, we need you to do a little bit of meditation, and you still don't take what they do, then nothing's going to change either. So it's like, once we can start to just build that personal responsibility, I think that's the biggest first step. People want stuff to change, but need to realize that it does come with just a little bit of work each day. These things aren't huge. It's like 5-10 minutes a day, like 1% of our day. And I think we can all give ourselves that.
Okay. So yeah, you don't have to necessarily feel like doing it. You can just take the action and then eventually you'll build that muscle. Are there plenty of days where you're like, I don't feel like doing this, but I'm just going to do it?
Absolutely. And then there's plenty of days that I don't feel like doing it and I don't do it. Like yesterday, for instance, was Monday, the day before we recorded this, and I just had a really massive day working on Saturday, running a few corporate workshops. Sunday I ended up having a fair bit of stuff to do, still did pretty well on our full potential, but yesterday I was just cooked and I was like, you know what, I'm giving myself a Monday that's like a Sunday for me. I'm just not doing anything, and kind of missed most of the things on my board. But it's about, giving yourself permission every now and then to go, okay, I'm not going to be perfect. That's okay, but never 2 days in a row. Always trying the next day, make sure I make up for it and not have 2 days in a row where I don't get to somewhat close to my potential. So, there's going to be days, but it's about being kind to yourself and knowing that we're not going to be perfect all the time, but it's about keeping that consistency. You're not trying to, if you miss out on something, nobody else sees it except for you, but it's like, it's the honesty you have with yourself, because you start to make such a detrimental relationship with yourself if you lie to yourself every day.
Okay. What does happiness mean to you?
What does happiness mean for me? Happiness for me, it's a hard question.
It is, isn't
There's many
it?
forms of happiness. I think happiness for me is being able to live a life of fulfillment and learn as much as you can and share it with many people as you can. And it continues to evolve. Happiness for a long time was winning a surf comp for me. Happiness for a long time was, very different to what it is now for me. But for now, it's just about trying to learn as much as I can and positively impact people, because I know that's what truly makes me happy now.
So if you look back on like when you were doing competitive surfing and traveling the world and living this quote unquote like amazing life compared to the life you live now, which is a lot more like service space. Am I okay?
Service based, yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. Still traveling a lot. Which version of Cooper is feeling more happy, do you think?
I don't know if I want to compare, because there's I'd say Cooper, carefree 20-year-old Cooper traveling the world surfing, getting paid, full of ego, was at times happy and enjoyed and had amazing time, like a beautiful, beautiful experience. But I don't think I was fulfilled. I think I was happy, but I wasn't fulfilled. I didn't feel like there was purpose to what I was doing. There was obviously people pat me on the back, doing well. Everyone's like, oh, good on you, you're doing well. But then it felt like when I wasn't doing well that they weren't feeling that way. And to me, that wasn't, living a fulfilled life. But now the work that I'm doing, it doesn't, I don't do it for the praise, but to see the impact that it can have is, for me, really purposeful. So I was definitely happy traveling the world and had some amazing experiences, but I also sort of rode the roller coaster of being quite low in between those high points. So now I feel like I've found a lot more balance. I've found a lot more fulfillment, that I don't need to do the best workshop ever. I know that the work is sort of spreading across so many different avenues, that I'm doing impactful stuff every day, whether or not I'm doing something. There's enough content out there now. There's enough podcasts out there that there's always, every moment of every day, there's someone listening to a podcast. So I know there's that impact being had, which makes me super happy and fulfilled now.
I'm so glad that you used the word fulfilled. Do you know the old Tony Robbins?
I do.
Yeah, so he has a beautiful quote, and it's like, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. So what's fulfillment to you?
Fulfillment to me is just knowing I've left the world a better place than when I entered. I feel like there's so many people out there who are looking to sort of grow and get themselves ahead in life, which obviously I'd love to do from a resource and financial point of view. But I don't know, I just feel like helping people along the way is what it's truly about. I've chased that individual journey of being successful from an athlete point of view, which was amazing, and I loved every moment of it. But now for me, it's understanding that I've learned some amazing things, and if I can share them with people and make their life a little bit better because of talking and sharing a story, like that to me is fulfillment. Knowing that the journey I've been on, the lessons I've learned are not only valuable for me, but can also be valuable for others, I think is really what fulfillment's about.
Okay, that's huge. So I've seen some videos of your workshops, which look really, really fun. And there's usually a bucket in this video. And I'm really curious, what does this bucket have to do? Also, I love your yellow watch band.
Okay, I know it's very matchy with my yellow good human, isn't it?
Yeah, it's perfect.
The buckets.
Tell
The
us about
buckets
the
are always
bucket.
fun. So the buckets, I use a bit of a visual, I guess, analogy, some sort of props for my workshop, just so there's not just me standing in front. I feel like you got to have something that people remember you by. So my buckets are pretty cool. So I have
My buckets are pretty
yeah,
cool.
I have these buckets when I do my workshops that I bring out the front, and I have a slide, and then I have the buckets, and there's a transparent bucket in the middle that's kind of propped up, and then there's like 4 smaller buckets. And the analogy goes like this, that we all have a mental health bucket. We all have a different capacity, how much we can bring on, how much we can handle before eventually the bucket fills up and overflows. And when it reaches overflow, that's when I think we reach mental illness, when we get to that capacity where we can't handle it, which is very sad. But it happens to some people, obviously, when they get to that point where they really do need help. But I believe our personal goal should be to develop the skills and the understanding and the reflective capability that when our bucket starts to fill up, we can witness it and realize, oh, I'm not feeling that good. Okay, what can I do to empty it? So what I do in the workshop is I say, I'm going to share a few different things that have happened in my life recently that you might be able to relate to that have had a negative effect on my mental health, just to show them that, hey, I'm not perfect. We all deal with this. So I go, who's had a family member pass away recently? I lost a pop recently. It was very tough, and a lot of hands will go up. So I have a small bucket I pour into this big bucket that starts to fill up. Then I say to people who's had an injury or an illness that's made them pretty upset. They haven't been able to do the things they love to do. A bunch of hands go up, pours the water and fills the big bucket up. Then I say, who's had a relationship breakup, whether it be romantic, friendship, work, and just a relationship's ended and it's been quite difficult to deal with. A lot of hands go up. I fill this bucket up. Talk about financial situations we get in. So by the end, this bucket's almost full, almost overflowing. And I say, look, this is my mental health. This is what happens to me, just like all of you, when these difficult things come up in our life. It's inevitable. And that's okay. As long as we start to understand ourselves well enough, we start to develop the skills, the awareness that, hey, our bucket's starting to fill up. Okay, what can I do to empty it? So on the side of the bucket, I have 5 holes covered by 5 stickers. So I talk about the 5 different values that I've learned with different skills involved with them that I use to empty my bucket every day. So I go, first one, responsibility. I talk about responsibility, how we have to be the hero, not the victim of our story, take responsibility ourselves. So I peel the first sticker off. You see the water pouring out of the bucket. Then I talk about gratitude, the different impact that gratitude's had on me, some stories with it, some science behind it. We do a little exercise all together. Boom, peel the gratitude sticker off. Hey, the bucket gets a little bit emptier. Talk about empathy, share some stories, some exercises, peel a sticker off. The bucket gets emptier. Then I talk about mindfulness, then I talk about kindness. So as the workshop goes through, it's like the audience gets to go on a journey where they visibly watch at the start my mental health get poor because of these situations we all get in. But then by the end, they start to watch it empty. So I use it as a way to engage the audience, that they're not only going on a story with hopefully my words, with the presentation, but also with the bucket. So it's kind of just like a whole... it just kind of gave my workshop a bit of an MO that people kind of can see and be like, oh, I remember that, the buckets guy. It's like, rather than just being the same as other people. Yeah, it's funny. I went from traveling the world with surfboards to now I travel like with buckets. But it's just a little thing that I use that, yeah, people can hopefully relate to and think about their own bucket when, oh, it's feeling a bit full and overflowing, to, okay, what can I do to empty it? It's just a visual way to show people.
Yeah, and it's such a nice reminder that, like, we don't just like do these healthy habits once and then our mental health is like amazing and we're good. It seems like it's just like a constant like checking in, looking after, like just how we exercise every day, exercise your brain, look after it and be kind to it. Is that like the vibe of it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just this idea that mental health is about maintenance. There's no finish line. It's literally about the journey every day, trying to do some certain things and maintain healthy habits that can, allow us to thrive in life.
So I recently saw a beautiful video that you posted on the Good Human Factory, and it was talking about a time in Japan. I think you were in Japan, and you had a bad day, and then you got some wise words. I would love to hear this story if you want to share it again.
Yeah, of course. So kindness is something that I do speak about a lot. It's something that hopefully everybody listening understands, that kindness is a beautiful value to hold. But I learned a couple of years ago the fact that kinder people are happier people, and there's some amazing studies now. You can type it in on Google, kinder people are happier people studies, and there's all these incredible data studies that have been done all around the world to show that people who practice kindness and do kind things for others are happier people. And we all probably agree that we want to be happier. So it's like, okay, here's a great way to be happier. But I learned that in a really strange way. I was in Japan for a surf comp when I was about 20 years old, and right at this time I'd been struggling quite a bit with my identity. If I lost in a surf comp, I felt really down, and if I did well, I was feeling really good. But this particular day, me and my three best mates who I can travel the world with, we'd all lost in the first round of the event, and we were all pretty devastated, and we're like, okay, what are we going to do to make ourselves feel better? And one of the boys was like, oh, let's go to Tokyo. Every year, normally when we lost in events, we'd go to Tokyo and we'd go shopping and check it out. So one of the boys was like, let's go to Tokyo, we'll go shopping. And we're like, all right, let's do that. So we got the train into Tokyo, we went shopping, bought a bunch of stuff we didn't really need, and we're feeling a little better. We get the train back that night, and then we're having dinner at this sushi restaurant, and I was sitting next to the guy kind of making the sushi and having a bit of a conversation with him. And he said, how was your day? And I was like, oh, it's pretty average. We came to Japan for the surf comp. We lost in the first round today, but then we went to Tokyo and went for a bit of an adventure day and did some shopping, and now we're feeling good. And he's like, oh, you guys have got it all wrong. And I said, what do you mean? He said, in the Western world, you say when you're having a bad day, go and buy yourself something. That'll make you feel good. And I was like, yeah, retail therapy. And he said, what we say here in my family and in my culture is when you're having a bad day, don't go and buy yourself something. Go and do something nice for somebody else. That'll actually make you feel good. And when he said that, I was like, it's so true. Like whenever we do something nice for somebody, it makes us feel good. And I'll give you like a small example of this from yesterday in my life. I try and do this all the time now. I mean, I wasn't having necessarily a bad day, but I went to go and put my washing on, and my roommate's washing was in the washing machine. And I was like, okay, I can react to this in a few ways. I can send him a message and be like, come on, mate, you can't leave it, like, make sure you're onto that.
Yeah.
I can get it out and leave it wet and leave it for him to have to hang it out. Or I can spend 1 minute of my time and hang his washing out and then put mine in. And then he comes down later that day and he's like, oh man, thank you so much. Like, how good does it feel when your mate's done your washing? And it took me 1 minute of my time. Instead of reacting and being angry about a situation, I saw it as an opportunity to do something nice for mate. It made me feel good, made him feel good, and it took a minute of time. Like, we have these opportunities all the time. Mate left the dishes in the sink and they didn't clean them. Instead of getting angry about it, obviously if it happens multiple times, but we lead by examples quite often with these things. We keep a clean environment, then our roommates follow. We, lead by example with these things, and it actually can make us feel good when we flip that mindset.
That is so, so powerful. I think, there's a lot of studies, especially around money. People think like, oh, if I spend money on myself, I'll feel good. But actually, if you go and like even just buy somebody a coffee, like you get so much more enjoyment out of it. So I love that. I wanted to talk about productivity and being consistent because, as we've said before, you have been extremely consistent and just like onto it. What have been your best like tips for just like getting shit done and continuing to shop every single week?
I'll take two angles with it. The podcast is one that's been a fun juggle, if I'm being honest. Like, I haven't missed a week since December 2021, where I've done an episode, 2 or 3 episodes a week. For a year I did 3 a week, which was crazy.
That is crazy.
But I think just the why, like the podcast, I didn't make a cent off it for the first 2 years of the 3 years that I've had it, or maybe 18 months of the 3 years. So it was like always about the passion for it. I knew the impact that the stories were having on myself. So that was the first thing. I was like, all right, I love having these conversations. I get to have multiple conversations a week with incredibly smart people about their journey. Like the why was there. So I was like, I'm doing it not for the money, not for the growth of the podcast, but more so for me. So the why was super important with the growth of the podcast. And then just looking at it as a long game, the way I saw the podcast was I looked at people like Joe Rogan, like Stephen Bartlett, like Dylan Buckley, all these different podcasts that I truly look up to. And most of them are on episode 1800, episode 500, episode 300. And I look to them and go, okay, if I want to get to the point where I only started listening to a lot of them once they were at episode 250, 300 is when I discovered them. So I'm like, okay, if I want to get to this size growth, like my chapter 1 is never going to look like someone's chapter 300. So I've like looked at it always as this, like I'm an apprentice of the game of podcasting. Like it's going to take me 2-3 years to learn and understand and grow to a point that it's even anything. So that's kind of the mindset that I adopted pretty early. Like it's not like, oh, look at the numbers, oh, it's not growing. Oh, look at the numbers, oh, it's not growing. Like, oh, I can't get this guest. It's like, no. There was a lot of guests that I really wanted to get early days with Good Humans podcast. I have quite an incredible network of people. And I haven't got a few of them still of the biggest guests that I felt like I could get. But now I'm like, okay, I'm not in any rush. Like if I get them into 30 episodes, all good. If I get them in 50, even better. It means I'm getting them when the audience is bigger. So it's, yeah, not about being harsh on yourself early, especially just when it comes to consistency with early podcasts. I know a lot of people, I think it's like 90% give up before episode 10 or something.
I think it's before like episode 4 or something crazy like that.
There you go. A lot of people find it difficult. So I think just looking at the podcast as like a networking tool and as a way to grow and get better at your skills, like so many of my workshops now come because of my podcast. So it's like realizing that it's not necessarily quite often the silver lining or the benefits you get from something come in a different place that you don't realize. So it's about just, the consistency has been so important. And then as well, like the 1% Club is something that I do every morning. I send a guided 10-minute meditation. Every night I write 3 things I'm grateful for. And I've done that for, 780 days in a row now, which is super cool. But once again, it's doing it for me. I need the accountability to do that. So having the group's been a great way to do that. So from consistency, I think just having something and knowing that you can stick to it. Then like I did a year sober, consistently not drinking. Like I think just setting these different challenges and putting like a hard sand in the line, making a decision, and then just being honest with yourself when you answer those questions every night. Are you actually living to the goals that you set out to yourself? If you say, I'm going to do a podcast a week for 6 months, do it. Don't worry about if it's doing well or not. Just stick to something. And that's what I've done for the last couple of years. Even just with the Good Human Factory as a whole, I've just never looked back. I've known my compass is heading in the right direction. Like I know I'm never going to get north, but I know I'm heading north now. I'm not trying to sort of work out if I'm doing the right thing. It's like doubling down on what you know is right and then, chasing it. And
playing the long game. It sounds like you're definitely in that mindset.
Definitely. Long games, everything.
Okay. Sobriety.
Sobriety.
What sobriety? Me trying to sound fancy. Okay, that is awesome that you did 1 whole year without the alcohols, and I feel like you went out sober quite a bit, right? Like did you out partying, clubbing, sober?
A little bit. I mean, I've got so many incredible opportunities to go out and party, from my best friend who's like a DJ, Alex Hayes, to my brother-in-law is one of the biggest DJs in the world, Fisher. So there's plenty of opportunities to party for me, but I had a neuroscientist on Good Humans podcast back on episode 44 over a year ago now. Her name's Nicole. She's incredible from over in the UK. And we spoke about the effects of so many things on the brain, from drugs and alcohol to sex to gratitude. And when we spoke about alcohol, I was like 2 weeks away from my 28th birthday. And I guess I'd been somewhat sober curious a lot through my surf career. I'd taken a month off or like 5 weeks off, trying to think that's going to make me win the next comp, and then I wouldn't win and I'd get back on the drink. So I'd never really committed to more than maybe a month or 2 months. And when I spoke to Nicole, she was talking about the negative effects of alcohol on the brain, how if you drink just 5 drinks a week, you're classified as a chronic drinker. And I was like, wow,
what?
I've been a chronic drinker since I was 15, really, almost every week of my life. So I was like, you know what? I've done 10 years legally drinking from 18 to 28. Maybe I can do 28 sober and take a whole year off after 10 years on and said it on the podcast. And from a week later, didn't have a drink for 12 months. And yeah, I went out a few times sober and just sort of drank Red Bulls or drank soda water or fizzy drinks or a lot of non-alcoholic beers and non-alcoholic mocktails just for the fun of it. But yeah, it was a cool experience. It was nice to know that I could do it. I got through it. I changed a lot of habits in my life. I definitely, now that I've finished it, don't just go and have drinks at the pub for the sake of it anymore. I feel like my routine is very different. But yeah, it was cool. I worked out that I could do it. I had a lot of people follow the journey and draw inspiration from it, which was really cool as well. But yeah, if anyone out there is sober curious, thinking, oh, you know what, I wish I could take a bit of time off, you definitely can, because if I can do it with the environment that I find myself in quite a lot, then anyone can definitely do it.
Definitely. I'm a fellow sober gal, and I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, but it's easy for you because you just have the personality, or because you're a girl. I think guys have a little bit more pressure. Do you know what I mean? Like the boys will be like, let's catch up at the pub, or like, mate, why are you not drinking? When you first started going sober, did you kind of feel that like pressure and get those comments?
Not really. I'm very lucky. I feel like the group of people and the community I've built around me now is very aligned with my values, from different top level athletes in sport to just people who have been watching, I guess, the work and the growth I've had with the Good Human Factor, and just me as a person realizing that, hey, once I've committed to this, that, yeah, I'm probably going to stick to it, and not being like, oh, come on, mate, have a drink. Every now and then you'd go out and run into an old friend that you hadn't seen in a while, and you'd be like, oh, they'd be like, you want a beer? And I'd be like, oh, no, I'm not drinking. And they'd be like, oh, come on. And then I'd explain what I'm doing. And 99% of people would be like, oh, wow, I wish I could do that too. Everybody wants to be able to do it, and everybody can do it, but it just takes that little bit of discipline, that little bit of self-control. And yeah, just if you're at mid-20s and you're like, I wonder what life is like without drinking, the best way to find out is to just take some time off.
Definitely. And I think it builds up your confidence so much, because you're not relying on the old alcohol confidence. So you become a lot more better with people as well. That's what I found anyway.
Absolutely. You just kind of like, what I realized was I'd like go out and I'd see myself in other people, and I'd be like, oh, no judgment, but like, wow, that's me every weekend for the last 10 years. Like, is that a real good representation of who I really want to be? And is that really a good representation of my brand? Of, yeah, just a lot of things started to question myself probably right before I did the year sober. I mean, I have a business, not in any way, shape or form trying to call myself a good human, but called the Good Human Factory. So it kind of automatically gives me this branding of like, hey, people look to me as someone who holds good values. And if I'm going out getting drunk and partying every weekend, then it doesn't fully align with my values. And now I just live a bit more of a simple life and try and, yeah, go out when I need to. I've been very lucky. I got to go over to Europe and spend a couple of weeks partying with Fisher during the summer of Europe, which was really fun. So I'm lucky I can sort of pick my battles now, and then in between the battles really live a aligned and values-driven routine life.
What a balance. You do breathwork at the beach in the morning and then go over to Ibiza and party with Fisher.
Crazy.
That must be nuts. I love the polarity of it.
Yeah, big contrast.
Yeah, big contrast. Okay, I'm mindful of your time because I know you have that Zoom, but we love to end the podcast on the Fast Five. So they're just 5 quick rapid fire questions. Do they end up being quick? Not really, but feel free. Okay, first of all, what is your favorite book and why?
Favorite book and why? Very hard to pick a favorite, but I'll choose one. Lost Connections by Johan Hari. The journalist that did a book on mental health. It's called Lost Connections, Why You're Depressed and How to Find Hope. But it's a really interesting one because it goes on to talk about all these different reasons why people are depressed, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to environmental issues, all these different things why we're depressed, and kind of goes on to debunk quite a bit about SSRIs and how the pharmaceutical industry have kind of operated for the last 60 years. So I found that very fascinating. That was a big eye-opener, and I find books when you read them and it kind of changes your mind on something is really powerful. So that was one that really was a big shift for me.
Oh my gosh, it sounds like it has so much good juice in it.
Very worth reading.
Okay. What is your favorite quote?
Oh, I've got so many. I'm literally going to go home and answer this today. That was my question for my group this week, which means I'm going to talk about it on a podcast today.
Oh, I love that.
I've got so many.
Oh, drop a few because I love a good
I'll give you a
quote.
couple. not biggest and best, but one that I love is the act of confidence comes before the feeling of confidence. I truly live by that. Getting on stage, speaking, people are waiting for that feeling of confidence to come before they do anything. But it's like, no, you just got to like put yourself and pretend that you know what you're doing. It's kind of like fake it till you make it, but the act of confidence before the feeling, it's not even faking it. You just like literally have to act like you know what you're doing, and then eventually you feel pretty good doing it. So that's a big one. Another one that I love is, I said earlier in the podcast, knowledge is knowing, wisdom is doing. I feel like it's a good one to sit at the back of your head, sort of when you're not doing those things that you know are good for you. It's like, oh, I know it's good. Okay, wisdom is actually doing. Oh, I could go on for days with quotes, but another one that I kind of came up with myself that I love is shortcuts don't lead to the destination you desire.
Ooh.
Quite often we'll take a shortcut to get to somewhere, but once you get there, you know you haven't really gone the right route, so it's not really that destination you truly desire in your heart. So try not to take shortcuts. Try and do the work that's required to get to where you want to be. So many quotes. I could keep going, but I'd just leave those three.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think the doing is wisdom, or wisdom.
Knowledge is knowing, wisdom is doing.
Yeah, wisdom is doing is so, so true, because we have literally all the information we could ever want at our fingertips. But it's like taking action on that actually matters.
Yeah.
Okay, what has been one of the most pivotal moments in your life?
Pivotal moments. There was a moment I was sitting on the beach in South Africa where my mindset really changed with gratitude. I was in South Africa and I'd just lost all my sponsors for surfing. I wasn't getting paid anymore. I just started working as a landscaper full time.
So random.
Yeah, well, working as a landscaper to pay for my event. So I'd work for 40, 50 hours a week, make $1,200 a week working for 3 weeks, and then I'd have to go to South Africa for an event that would cost me $3,500, $4,000. So I'd spend all the money for the next event. So I started doing that, and I developed a bit of a pretty sour victim mindset. And I was in South Africa for this event, and I was sitting on the beach kind of in my head going like, oh, blah, 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 from America's getting paid so much more money than me. I'm getting paid nothing to surf. He's getting paid all this, but I'm higher ranked than him, and just had this victim mindset. And then I was sitting there and I just remembered these words that my dad said to me. He said, appreciation, not expectation, Cooper. Appreciation, not expectation. Like, there's always going to be people who are getting more than you that deserve less. And there's always going to be people who might deserve more that are getting less. So just be appreciative that you're sitting on the beach in South Africa, you're going surfing, doing what you love. And then there's people at home that are still digging holes, like your workmates in the landscapers. So like, why are you complaining that you're not getting paid like the other surfer? Why not just be grateful that, oh, you're here surfing while your other mates are at home working? So that was a big perspective shift for me, to start really comparing across and down rather than across and up. Not that workers at home are across and down, but just understanding there's always going to be people that are going to have it worse than us. Yet a lot of us are comparing our lives to people who, might have it better than us in our kind of self-beliefs of what better is. But yeah, that was a big pivotal moment for me to really start living to that motto of appreciation, not expectation.
So important, because we could constantly look around and think like, why don't I have that? But if you're like grateful for what you have, that's so much more powerful.
For sure.
Okay, the second last question is, are you happy?
Yes, I am happy.
I love that. It was such a peaceful way to reply as well. Yes, I am. Okay, and my last question is if you could embed a habit or a mindset into the listeners' ears to become their best selves, their happiest selves, what would it be?
I mean, the simplest one is to give 1% of your day to your mental health each day. 10 minutes of meditation, 5 minutes of gratitude, 4 minutes of gratitude. Such a nice way to be like, okay, I need to do something. But I think the simplest 2 tips that I'll give people are just mindfulness and gratitude. Each night when you brush your teeth, think back to your day. What went well today? 3 little things I enjoyed about today. It's starting to change our neuroplasticity of our brain. It releases serotonin, oxytocin, the happiness chemicals. So when we just start to think, okay, what are a few things that went well today? We're starting to change that brain chemistry. And then as well, just mindfulness. Am I connecting with my senses each day? What can I see? What can I hear? What can I feel? Trying to get out of the constant thoughts that we have, 60,000 a day, and just sort of let them slow down and connect with what's happening in the present moment. So yeah, try and connect with your senses each day and try and practice gratitude each day. I think are 2 real simple little ones that we can all do quite easily.
Yeah, definitely. I like that you've paired it up with brushing your teeth, because hopefully everyone does that.
There you go. Habit stacking. James Clear, another great book, Atomic Habits.
Oh, I've heard a lot about that one.
It's a good one.
The 1% Club. Can anyone join that?
Yeah, you can. So if you're listening and you're like, you know what, sounds like I could probably get a bit of help and maybe need some accountability with my gratitude and meditation every morning. Like I said before, I send these guided 10-minute meditations every night, 3 things I'm grateful. In these group chats, there's 9 group chats. There's about 150 to 200 in each group. It's completely free to join.
There's 9 group chats.
Yeah, so there's like 1,500 people that send their gratitude in each day now. It's been going for 2 years. If you want to join the club, you send at the Good Human Factory a DM saying, I want to join the club. You get added in. Write your gratitudes each night, click the meditation each morning, and yeah, you get to read everyone else's. That's the coolest thing. In the last 2 years, there's been close to 500,000 gratitudes have been written in from strangers all around the world where, yeah, they just sit there each night and write 3 things that went well during their day. And yeah, 500,000 over 2 years is pretty special to read and understand the impact that just that reflection on thousands of people has had is, yeah, quite profound. So if you want to join, just send at the Good Human Factory a DM on Instagram saying I want to join the club, and you'll get added in. It's completely free.
You're part of the squad. Why are there 9? Because is there a max that you can have of people?
It used to be max 32 in a group chat. So we had 27 groups at one stage. And then they changed Instagram from 32 max to 250 max. So then they condensed from 27 groups down to 9. That 9 because there's enough room that they can all still grow another like 80 each. So eventually if we filled 9, it would be like 2,300. Right now there's about 1,500, so there's room to add to each group. But if it keeps growing, it keeps growing. Yeah, people leave every day, people join every day. It's a cool little community. Hopefully eventually it'll turn it into an app and it can have its own platform, but that's on the list of ideas that I'm dealing with.
Yes, that would be amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. I can genuinely feel like your passion and your love for what you do. And I think it's just such an important mission. So thank you for making the time because I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You will make your Zoom
Yeah, I've got
well
heaps
in
of time.
I was so mindful of that. I was like, don't waffle, Andy. And yeah, if people want to follow along on the podcast and Instagram, what are your Instagram handles?
Instagram's just at Cooper Chapman, super easy. TikTok at Cooper Chapman _ and yeah, just the goodhumanfactory.com website and the Good Human Factory on Instagram. Plenty of places to find us, but I'm sure you'll find it on the internet. But yeah, come check out what we're doing. There's a bunch of really exciting stuff and different resources to help with their mental health.
Perfect. Amazing. And guys, if you enjoyed this, feel free to screenshot it and put it on your story. You can tag us. My Instagram is at attitudeswithandy. You can follow and subscribe and like and comment and all those groovy things. Anyway, thank you for listening. I love you all. Bye.
Bye-bye.